Spotlight is proudly sponsored by HEC Media, St. Louis's home for arts, education, and culture.
Great innovation comes from great vision and great leadership.
The biggest thing was really the peer support.
You're going to win some and you're going to lose some. But unless you try, you're not going to win any.
Today on Spotlight, the power of the Pink Ribbon Girls, how this group makes lives better. Plus, the art museum showcases a man they say was underappreciated. And then how medical innovations in Missouri are helping people across the globe. But first, an interview with the former Chief of Staff to George H.W. Bush. It's Sunday and you're watching the Emmy Award-winning Spotlight.
Most Americans know President H.W. Bush as our 41st president, serving only one term in the White House. But his former Chief of Staff, Jean Becker, says his actions after leaving the Oval Office were equally remarkable and are chronicled in her new book, The Man I Knew, the amazing story of George H.W. Bush's post-presidency.
President Bush was very sad when he lost his re-election bid in 1992. But they didn't hate getting back to normal life either, and they found it to be a great adventure.
From the time he left the White House until his death in 2018, the University of Missouri journalism graduate and former USA Today reporter spent nearly 25 years as his chief of staff. Talk about being able to name drop the life that you've lived with by being at his side and her side, Mrs. Bush as well, is extraordinary. Do you think yourself? Do you actually?
Yeah, it doesn't seem real anymore. I grew up on a farm in Missouri, and my graduating high school class had 57 kids in it. And again, I say in the book, Mikhail Gorbachev once got so mad at me, he told me to shut up. But I was kissed by Tom Selleck.
Hey, life is good. Becker got her entry into the Bush's lives when she served as a deputy press secretary to First Lady Barbara Bush. And she says she intentionally steered away from politics, nor is her book a tell-all.
I wasn't sure these were my stories to tell. And then I thought, well, they are my stories. If not me, who? He really stayed off TV and out of the press. He really felt, and he writes about this, you had your chance. You had your chance. And now it's time for you to get off the stage and accept when it was, again, to promote a good cause or to support someone he loved. He didn't seek any public opportunities at all. And what's interesting is, you know what? The man was brilliant. History is treating him very kindly. I'm very excited.
Becker shares many funny and poignant stories of trying to control the life of an active former president.
I knew that America respected him, but I felt like they really didn't know him. They didn't know how funny he was, how dear he was. He lived life with passion, with joy, with purpose. And I just wanted them to know this amazing man who walked into my life one day. And it's just been a lot of fun.
He liked being referred to as 41, and you described that story. He didn't mind that, did he?
He loved it. You know, it was a big problem when his son became president, because suddenly there were two President George Bushes. And there were a couple times, including on Inauguration Day, when the new president asked his dad to join him in the Oval Office, and White House Chief of Staff, Andy Card, was in the Oval Office at work. And he said, President Bush, and they both turned around. And my boss, 41, said he knew that's when he had a problem. So a wonderful Congressman Dingle from Michigan, came up with a solution at a speech in DC at the Alfalfa Club. He announced he had a solution. 41, because President Bush, George H.W. Bush, was the 41st president of the United States, and 43. I learned so much from President Bush, and one of them definitely was think big. You have nothing to lose. Yeah. And a lot of us hesitate to roll the dice. You might have this idea, but you're too nervous to pick up the phone. You're too nervous to ask that person out or to take that new job. And President Bush's point was always, you're going to win some and you're going to lose some. But unless you try, you're not going to win any. The other thing, and I learned this from my mom and dad as well, but I learned it in spades from both President and Mrs. Bush, you got to give back. You've got to figure out a way to get involved in your community. Mrs. Bush had a favorite quote. I think it came from Mother Teresa, where she used to love to say, everybody wants to save the world, but nobody wants to do the dishes. Mm-hmm. And her point was, you don't have to be Bill Gates. You don't have to be George and Barbara Bush. Find your passion and find a way to make a difference and get involved. And I've learned that from the Bushes. If you're not involved in something, find out how you can make a difference.
Scan the QR code on your screen with your phone's camera to watch the full interview and find out how she once riled up 41 by talking about St. Louis's own Albert Pujols. Or just head to hecmedia.org. Scan the QR code on your screen to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram.
So I'm walking it by myself, and just that time of prayer, and it's a challenge. I'll be walking about 15 miles a day, every day for 14 days.
Carrie Forrester is preparing for a spiritual journey, an adventure that will take her across the globe on a historical walk known as the Camino.
I'm going to walk the Camino from Porto, Portugal, to Santiago, Spain. And it is the way of St. James, and there's several different pilgrim routes that they've been taking for thousands of years that all end in Santiago, Spain, where St. James is buried.
Forrester thrives on adventure and yoga and travels often for both. But there is a different purpose to this pilgrimage. She is raising awareness and money for the St. Louis chapter of Pink Ribbon Girls, a group whose tagline is "No one travels this road alone."
The Pink Ribbon Girls mission is very simple. We provide direct services, meals, rides to treatment, house cleaning, and peer support to anyone, regardless of income, battling breast or gynecological cancer in Missouri or Illinois.
I have not had any sort of cancer, but I have so many friends, of course, who have and who've, had treatment, and they need that support, both emotionally and physically, to make sure they're getting healthy meals and to their appointments on time, and I believe in giving back.
Jen Crosby has felt the power of Pink Ribbon Girls firsthand.
The biggest thing was really the peer support.
The young mother went from powerlifting at the gym to a stage 3 breast cancer diagnosis in a matter of days.
And what I really needed was the camaraderie and the sisterhood of Pink Ribbon Girls.
The group sent meals, which helped keep her and her son fed. But it was words of encouragement from PRG's Survivor Network that kept her going.
Survivorship is so much more difficult than I expected.
The cancer is gone, thankfully, but her strength hasn't returned, which is frustrating for the athlete.
It's finding a balance, and it's nice to have people there with you who understand. When I say the tamoxifan's really making it hard for me to do these things, and they're like, oh yeah, I felt that same way.
Pink Ribbon Girls serves anyone with cancer who needs help. However, many of their clients face food and transportation insecurity. That's why awareness like Carrie's walk along the Camino is so important.
It's unbelievable. I mean, we are so lucky to have people that really hear about our mission and understand how important it is.
And as she walks what is sure to be a physical, emotional, and mental challenge, Carrie says all the Pink Ribbon Girls will be with her.
I think we're all connected. And yes, I will be taking them with me and thinking about, and that's part of it, of being by yourself, is reflecting on the bigger picture, what other people are doing and some of the suffering they have in their lives. We can always support people.
HEC has been bringing you positive programming and award-winning content for decades. Arts, education, culture, in-depth discussions, films, and more. All in one place, hecmedia.org.
Oliver Lee Jackson is an incredibly important artist in the post-war American art scene. He really pushes the limits of the medium, of paint, of drawing, of printmaking, and he works across many mediums.
It's a retrospective selection of 12 paintings, drawings and prints by Oliver Lee Jackson, showing a range of works over more than 50 years. And you get a kind of great sense of Oliver's progression. The earlier work is more linear. You really get a sense of the importance of drawing. And in the later work, you start to see the importance of impasto, sort of gestural, oil painting. Oliver's work demands close looking, and the more you look, the more you see. Oliver is from St. Louis. He was born here in 1935. In the late 1960s, he was associated with a group called the Black Artists Group in St. Louis. A really important group of artists, musicians, poets, writers, who were trying to promote African-American art and culture in St. Louis. Oliver is an artist who, in terms of 20th century black artists, is an artist who hasn't been sufficiently appreciated.
So in one gallery, we're showcasing his paintings from the early 1970s to the present. And in another gallery, we have his works on paper, which include printmaking, drawing, and watercolor. He doesn't see any one medium or one material as being higher or more important than another. He thinks that all of his work starts from a gesture or a feeling, and he's really interested in creating what he calls a kind of intimacy between the viewer and the artwork.
We're showing a strong selection of his work from the early Sharpeville series, which deals with the Sharpeville massacre in South Africa in 1960 and his very intense personal response to that. So what you actually see here is a group of boys who are actually running from bullets. But in Oliver's iteration here, they're kind of abstracted. They're occupying this indeterminate space outside of time, and he's interested in that idea.
After he traveled around the continent of Africa, he was really influenced in the way that African artists utilized a variety of materials, from wood carving to nails, and he started employing collage materials in his own canvases. But he's also really interested in the history of European printmaking. He was very classically trained in intaglio printing and woodblock carving, but also abstract expressionism and European expressionism, from Kandinsky to Pollock to even contemporary modes of painting. He comes at it from this kind of overarching idea of art, and that includes music and that includes poetry. He's really interested in art in its kind of holistic way.
He's always loved music, associated closely with Julius Hemphill, really important jazz musician. There's a nice comparison you can make between Oliver's practice and the importance that he gives to spontaneity and jazz music.
He thinks of his artwork as this deep-looking, very experiential object, and he does that through all of these different mediums, and he takes each medium as its starting point. So for drawing, it's about the line, it's about the form, it's about this gesture, and you see figures or kind of empty space kind of play against each other, this kind of figure-ground relationship. Although for Oliver, he also believes that all of these binaries we like to assign things for art history are false. So for him, figures are made of paint, or made from a drawn line, or made from an etched line, and therefore they are not figures, they are forms, they are art. They come from the same materials that abstract spaces come from. And so he likes to think of these things as these expanding spaces that interact. So you'll see things appear in the canvases and the drawings, and that's what the close looking is about. It's about really looking and seeing where you think you see a little figure, or a crouching person, or a flying form, and really thinking about it. There's no wrong or right way to look at an Oliver Jackson picture.
On display through February 2022. Visit slam.org for more info.
HEC Films. Explore, inspire, educate, and entertain. HEC Films, just one of the many facets of award-winning content you'll find at hecmedia.org.
This is made in 3D printing. Very cool piece.
John Phillips prepares the 3D printed objects for assembly. He's the founder of the Fabricators Foundation, leading the production of 3D printed stethoscopes in St. Louis for GLIA, a Canadian medical device manufacturer.
On here, you could see, this, these are very actually complicated shapes here for 3D printed, and there's moving parts as well. And it's extremely light. I think normally on the 3M ones, these are made out of metal, which is quite heavy. And this stethoscope is quite light.
Simply made with earbuds and this tube.
And this is what gives you really like about 1,000% better sound quality. If sound is the most important thing in a stethoscope, then we've got that box checked.
It's not a medical supply product. It's a common hardware supply.
This is tubing that comes out of Coke machines.
Philip says the idea stems from the war-torn Gaza Strip, where GLIA's founder works to provide health care and much-needed medical devices.
From this last conflict between Israel and Palestine, Dr. Tarek Loubani, who's the founder of GLIA, is Palestinian and his family's from there.
The GLIA team in Gaza and St. Louis make the most out of using 3D printers. One stethoscope costs just $5 to make and sells for $30. And it's an open source design, meaning it's shared for anyone in the world to make, as the design is publicly accessible. Phillips explains GLIA is making open source medical devices to help provide care in places where healthcare is lacking.
Interest of humanity to have these solutions.
He says GLIA is also leading a campaign to mass produce open source 3D printed tourniquets.
Actually, the team in Gaza produced it. They created the first ones.
According to GLIA, so far, over 1,000 of these have been deployed in the field to treat critical bleeding injuries.
To immobilize the injured, this is a simple method, a simple way, so that you can have it in an emergency kit. You need something that's light and also that's firm, and that's why you need the 3D printing. It produces extremely strong and thin and light parts.
You're watching Spotlight.
A first of its kind in Missouri. It's the most powerful MRI scanner in the state. Workers used a crane to deliver the 7T MRI to the Next Gen Precision Health building on the University of Missouri campus in Columbia. Nearly 25 tons, the 7T packs more than twice the imaging power of conventional MRI machines. The addition was made possible through a collaboration with Siemens Healthineers.
The new Terra 7T magnet is completely new to the marketplace. When we received our FDA clearance on the 7T, it was the first in the world to be able to do both clinical and research on one system. There's about 12 of them in the United States today. Now, why Missouri? Actually, probably the better question is why not? Like with most things, great innovation comes from great vision and great leadership.
The MRI can help patients across the state in need of this powerful imaging. One example is early detection of Alzheimer's disease, when medication could slow disease progression.
There are certain very small structures in the brain that it affects first. And with the 7T, that increased image clarity that we get, we can actually see and measure changes in those very, very small structures of the brain early.
They will see in greater detail the structures associated with other neurological diseases, including Parkinson's, epilepsy, and multiple sclerosis, as well as conditions affecting muscles and joints. The MRI will be part of a larger effort to advance research throughout the University of Missouri system, including evidence-based mental health and addiction sciences studies at the University of Missouri St. Louis. Some of the UMSL-based research will rely on this latest advancement.
The ability to affect and change healthcare delivery across the state of Missouri, and how we do that with our technologies that we can bring to the table, our research that we bring to the table, and combining that with what the university can do for citizens all across Missouri is completely unique that we're really excited about at Siemens Healthineers.
Next Gen Precision Health researchers and doctors from all institutions in the University of Missouri system will see more detailed images than ever before.
You look at it from like a TV. So if you think about a TV, the quality of a TV in 1985 versus ultra high definitions TVs today, right? The clarity and the resolution that you get today was unmatched for what you could see in 1985. That's the difference between like a 3T magnet and a 7T magnet.
The Next Gen Precision Health building opens on the MU campus in late October.
A new artist with an old soul, later on Spotlight.
We're here at the Missouri History Museum, standing in the middle of the St. Louis Sound Gallery. This gallery covers St. Louis's entire popular music history, from the dawn of recorded sound in the late 1800s all the way up through the 2000s. We end with Nellie and the St. Lunatics. So across that range is a huge number of international stars and figures, and then also some local St. Louis legends that maybe didn't get such international fame but were huge influences here in the city locally. So people like Henry Townsend, he was a St. Louis blues musician who recorded in 9 consecutive decades, one of the longest recording careers of any musician in history. We have his piano on display. But then we also have artifacts from Josephine Baker, Scott Joplin, Tina Turner, Miles Davis, Chuck Berry, Nellie, all of the big international stars that you might recognize from St. Louis. Everyone's heard of Scott Joplin. He's the ragtime name, but he was just one of dozens of performers who came to St. Louis in the early 1900s. We had a local district here called Chestnut Valley. It was right around where Union Station is today. This was the center of the ragtime world in St. Louis, particularly a bar named the Rosebud Cafe was where all of these ragtime pianists would come and have cutting contests where they actually faced against one another to see who had the best chops. It was run by a man named Tom Turpin, who was actually the first African-American ragtime artist to produce his own piece of sheet music, the Harlem Rag, in 1897. A huge, influential individual, but a name you won't be nearly as familiar with as someone like Scott Joplin. When we talk about St. Louis's music heritage, it stretches very far back, but it also comes very much up into the present. So of course, in my own lifetime, Nellie is undeniably the name associated with St. Louis. We have pieces on display from Nellie. We actually have a microphone from his recording studio that both he and the St. Lunatics used to record albums. In the early 2000s, Nellie came out and put Midwest hip-hop on the map in a really huge way. Hip-hop was a genre often thought about as being an East Coast or West Coast genre, and here were these incredible artists right here in St. Louis. So when it comes to St. Louis and America's national music legacy, the city is very underrepresented a lot of times. We have ties to just about every major American genre you can think of, going all the way back to ragtime, blues and jazz, some of those really early genres of popular music. St. Louis was one of the formative centers where people were coming to hear these sounds for the very first time. And when you come to visit the St. Louis Sound Gallery, we want to make sure you remember to bring some headphones, because we actually have a QR code near the entry, and you can scan it with your phone and pull up a playlist of 100 different St. Louis artists. So as you're walking through the gallery, you'll see little record symbols with numbers on them. Those correspond to the playlist, and you can actually hear the artists. You know, music is the real artifact here that we want to bring attention to, so you can hear the artists as you're learning about them and seeing these artifacts from their lives. And we talk about more than just the artists as well. This exhibit dives into some of the wider context, the venues, the radio stations, even the record labels that were based here in St. Louis. One of the most legendary local venues is Mississippi Nights. We have pieces of the original bar top and stage floor from Mississippi Nights, as well as the giant logo window that was built into the outside wall of the building. That's going to be a favorite artifact, I imagine, for a lot of visitors, because they'll remember lining up right next to that window when they were getting into shows at Mississippi Nights back when they were younger. You know, when we talk as historians, we oftentimes like to separate out history. We say, well, that's immigrant history or that's baseball history. You can't actually do it so cleanly like that. Music history is history. Hidden within these artifacts, you'll find stories about race, you'll find stories about immigration, you'll find stories about food and culture and nightlife. This exhibit goes far beyond music. This is a celebration of St. Louis's history and identity. So the St. Louis Sound exhibit is open for more than a year. It closes in January of 2023, so you're going to want to make plans to come visit, and the price is right, it's absolutely free. And the exhibit isn't the only thing happening. We have a full lineup of programming and exciting things that are going to be going on while the exhibit is open. For more information about all of that, you can visit www.mohistory.org.
You can find the stories featured in today's show along with past episodes and more at hecmedia.org/spotlight. Multidisciplinary artist Brock Seals created the first artistically designed, authentic St. Louis Cardinals ball cap. The hat was given out as part of an African American Heritage Day giveaway on Labor Day this year. In 2017, we spoke to Seals about how he got started and what inspires him.
Hey, oh well, I'm on the phone like Alex Bell, just drinking clientele, OJ and White Infidel. No, this ain't YSL, this that new art by sales.
I haven't been creating visual art as long as I've been creating music, but I've always had an eye for art. I didn't know how to use certain tools to express my ideas. So once I learned how to use those tools is when I really became like a full-fledged visual artist. I just kind of create simultaneously between the two. I'm hopping back and forth. While I create, I listen to music, whether it's, you know, some music that somebody's made or whether it's some music I've made. I grew up in Jennings, Missouri. I went to Florissant Valley Community College. I was initially interested in fashion, but they didn't have a fashion program. So I was like, what am I gonna do? And I was always feeling like, okay, art seemed like a cool thing. You know, I've always had an eye for it. Yeah, I took my first art class, and kind of the rest is history. Here I am now. I've been doing music a little bit all my life. I started doing music in about 5th or 6th grade.
I'm so focused, whipping doses. You subscribe, 100 poses. Black Moses when I vibe. I keep paint like it's ammo. I just flip a bando.
I have an old soul. My first music project that I put out by myself was called Young Man, Old Soul. So it was just reflecting who I am as an artist, what are my influences. Like I listen to a lot of music from the 70s, like soul, R&B music. And that's because like my mom, like growing up with her, I would try to listen to rap. It was not going. In her car, she played nothing but old school music. So I just kept that influence. And I'm still influenced by that today when I make music, when I create art. So it's just always with me. Or whether it's a beat that I plan on writing to, you know, I just paint to it, listen to it. I may put the brush down, write something down, or I may just be freestyling while I'm painting. It's just like always at the same time. One inspires the other inspires the other. The art, I can, you know, paint something and it be done right then and there. With music, sometimes I write it and then go record it, so it's like a 2-step process. Or sometimes I'm just in the studio and I just do it while I'm there.
So my timepiece Gucci, I hate how they use the term artist so loose. Need time to myself, so I just chill work.
My style, I would say it's expressive, it's colorful, it's reflective of me.
Somewhere secluded. I cannot go outside, yeah. Gotta secure the bag. I got your in the
bag. The best piece of advice I've been given is stay humble. Practicing that right now.
Next week, meet the former music director for the St. Louis Symphony turned author. Plus, exploring the history of St. Louis with art. Thanks for watching Spotlight. Join us next Sunday at 9:30 a.m. on KPLR 11.